Welcome to the FantasyFling DFS channel. Take a break from the season-long commitment and join us for all things daily fantasy sports. Draftkings, daily drafts, the newest and hottest DFS deals, and all the best ball and DFS content you can handle. All right, let's dive headfirst into this episode.
Welcome. It's Brandon, aka FantasyFling, and we have JamesonRulez here. Jameson Hutchinson, aka JamesonRulez. How are we doing, man?
Doing good. Been a weird postseason. I feel like postseason's totally different from the regular season grind, but I'm excited to do one more, hopefully hit the big one. I know you've had a little Super Bowl experience with DFS, so hoping to lightning strikes twice here.
Me too, man. It was big. Last year I won. It's funny because I'm a Broncos fan, obviously. So we don't want I'm a Broncos fan. You're a Chargers fan. We don't want the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. But last year, once I was in the nuts and was winning $10,000, I was like, I don't even care who's winning the Super Bowl. I just want this money to hold, and it did, luckily. So, let's run it back. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and we've got a pretty good one. The chalk didn't hit with the Ravens, but Chiefs 49ers play back a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I think this game really lines up well, and I think it's going to be a close one. I'm excited to get into it.
Me too, and it's funny because I had a lot of Chiefs in best ball and the playoffs, best ball playoffs, and I actually did like a live draft on this channel for drafters, and I did Detroit and Kansas City, and I was a Detroit non-collapse away from like probably winning the whole tournament because I'm like in 200th place, and I literally had like Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and then I had Mahomes, like Kelsey, like Rashee Rice. So like my team was stacked, and I probably would have taken down the tournament, but they couldn't hold on in the second half, and it's is what it is. We got San Fran and KC, and honestly, this was a scenario that I really saw playing out just because Mahomes is you just can't beat him in the playoffs, dude. You just can't beat him. So,
no, that kind of sucks though about the Lions thing because you'd have so much leverage on against the entire field. Just the people who played the Ravens, people who played the 49ers. I mean, you knock the two favorites out. The Lions would be the ultra leverage. That stinks, but we got one more chance to make up for it. So we can kind of dive in here and kind of dissect a little bit of this.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I'm going to pull up real quick the game totals. So over at DFSarmy.com, we have the optimizer, and you see the game total here. We have a 47.5. This really hasn't changed. It's moved a little bit, maybe a half point here and there, but it's settled right where it opened at 47.5. Of course, we're 3 days away from the game, but we have San Fran as the favorites here. So they are up to 2-point favorites. Now, this has kind of gone back and forth. They were 2.5, then 1.5. They're 2-point favorites. By the way, sharps are on the San Fran side, and most of the money, the public money, is on the Kansas City side. And, for me, normally I side with the sharps, Jameson, but in this game, what we've seen from Mahomes, I can't bring myself to bet against Mahomes. In fact, I took Kansas City, the +2. I think that's a pretty good bet there. What do you feel about the overall betting angles of this game? Game total, the spread. What are your thoughts?
I think it's kind of low scoring, and I'm actually on the other side. I think Chiefs +2 is probably a really smart bet because, betting against Patrick Mahomes, you get tired of losing after a while. But last week I kind of loaded up on San Fran, even when they were down. The odds for them to win the Super Bowl, I think I got them at like +110 and a couple different things. But, the numbers hasn't really changed all week. It's been San Fran really -2. If you're going to go off like the last couple weeks, obviously Brock Purdy hasn't been that great, but he's also gone up against two of the best offenses in football. The Lions have been really good all year. Green Bay really picked it up second half of the year, and Brock Purdy didn't play that great. And I know the Chiefs' defense is really good, but I feel like we have a lot of recency bias. I don't think the Patrick Mahomes has the weapons that, obviously Brock Purdy does. And, I think Nick Bosa can kind of get after the quarterback a little bit better than what, some of these other guys can. So I think they line up pretty well. The one thing I will say, Patrick Mahomes, I think he's got 7 interceptions in the entire playoff run. He's played a lot of playoff games in his young career. I just really don't see a scenario like maybe the 49ers got to kind of have to play a perfect game. But I do think they're going to win. I just think that Christian McCaffrey's in a really nice spot. I think Deebo Samuel is going to have a big game too, and that's just kind of where I'm leaning. But I kind of agree with just kind of how it laid out, and I don't think anything drastic's really happened the last week or two betting wise.
I've given a lot of thought to this, and I really think if these teams play 100 times, it could be like 50-50. And, the reason I say that is because Kansas City, they have an elite secondary. Really, they've had the better defense of the two teams easily. But they're not very good against the run. So I think if San Fran, just overall game theory, if San Fran is committed to running the ball, I think they could certainly win this game because Kansas City is just dead average against the run as of right now. So I think you have to, and this is something that, kind of goes back to just Kyle Shanahan and just the Shanahan offense. Like it's best when you just stick to the run game. And it's specifically when you got Christian McCaffrey. Now, I think if they lean on the run and, they don't get way behind, they could certainly just win this game pretty handedly because we got Christian McCaffrey, we got Deebo Samuel. They have so many weapons. Ayuk, George Kittle, and I think it's really going to be condensed between those 4. However, the other side of that coin that concerns me is they got gashed by both Detroit and Green Bay in the playoffs in the secondary. And Mahomes, we just talked about it. Mahomes he flips a switch when the playoffs come. And we saw it last year. I don't think they should have beat Philly. I thought Philly was a way better team, specifically last year, because Philly's defense was really good and, their offense was firing on all cylinders. But Mahomes just turned it on and beat Philly. And I'm just telling you, if the San Fran defense that we saw the past 2 games, if they show up, Mahomes is going to just torch them. However, they do have a lot of pass rushers, and I really think that's going to be the X factor in this game. They went after, they got Bosa, they traded for Young, they signed Gregory, they traded for Gregory as well. Gregory hasn't done anything. Young hasn't either. But if these guys can somehow show up in this game, I really think that's the X factor, and I think San Fran could win it pretty easily if that's the case.
Yeah, and just my kind of overall theory here is, when they played Baltimore, I didn't think Baltimore on offense had the horses. I mean, for Baltimore getting a shootout, you really have to have Lamar Jackson play his perfect game. And I thought he played fine last week, and, he's kind of gotten grilled. But Zay Flowers and, the rest of those guys, you got Mark Andrews who wasn't healthy. They just didn't have the horses there. And then, Josh Allen played, I thought, probably as good as he could for a defense that he had that was so depleted. But I just think the 49ers have been the best team all year. I think they got more weapons, and I know Patrick Mahomes can make as much magic happen as he can. But, let's say 49ers start, shooting out on offense. Does, MVS and Justin Watson, can they really keep up? I know they got Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, but I just think the 49ers have been the most talented team all year, and I'm just going to stick with them there.
I agree. And, I actually I do think they should win. They've definitely been the most talented team. But, it's just kind of like Brady in a lot of ways. It's just like there were times when he should not have won the Super Bowl. I mean, just look at the team against Atlanta. If Atlanta just runs the ball and doesn't start, throwing and turning the ball over, they lose that game. And it's just kind of Mahomes has a lot of Brady in him for sure. So I agree with you. I like the Chiefs plus some money, but I I'm rooting for San Fran, and I certainly think they can win because I think they're the more talented team. I do like the over in this game. I'm on the other side. I think there's just so much talent on both sides that I struggle to see this game not hitting the over. But that said, I like I said, if these two teams play 100 times, there's so many different outcomes I think in this game. So I'm not going crazy with it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. And of course, as far as DFS goes, just like any San Francisco involved game, especially in Showdown, you're just going to pick a side. You're going to play Christian McCaffrey or you're not. This matchup sets up really nice for Christian McCaffrey. I've faded him a lot this year, and I think it's kind of worked out. But as far as the Super Bowl goes, I really have a hard time fading him in this matchup here. And I think that's kind of where you start, not even in just a captain, just overall in general.
I agree. I think he could get as many as 30 touches in this game easily, maybe even exceed that with some work through the air. And I think if they're going to win, they're going to have to lean on him. And he won't get phased out because even when they're in a negative game script, I mean 2 games ago, we saw him get 12 targets. So, I'm not fading him. I faded him a lot during the year, but that's on a main slate. On these small slates, on the Showdown, I'm definitely going to be over the field on Christian McCaffrey in this spot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And one other thing about Kyle Shanahan, even if he's down, he's still committed to the run. So you don't have to worry about that as well. But, as far as captain goes, we kind of start right there with Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
I do want to talk about the quarterbacks here for a second. I don't love either of them. And I think that you can build lineups without them just fine and them not hurt you. Patrick Mahomes, as far as a fantasy quarterback, hasn't really been great this year. I know it's a one-game so anything can happen. But I'd rather play, Kelsey naked or Rice. We haven't really seen Patrick Mahomes get there. Not saying that he can't. And then on the other side, I expect a lot of Christian McCaffrey, and then let's say Deebo Samuel rushes for 2 touchdowns, and then Christian McCaffrey gets another. That's kind of a viable option to get away from Brock Purdy, kind of being in the lineup. So as far as quarterbacks go, I really just don't love either of them, honestly. I'm sure you might think differently, but just kind of starting there.
I don't like Purdy at all in the captain. And he really impressed me last week and, kind of won me over a little bit just by the way he showed resiliency in that game. But given this matchup, a much tougher matchup, Detroit's secondary was not good. It hasn't been good all year. We saw what this secondary really did to Lamar outside of one play. And so, I don't like Purdy at all in the captain spot. I'll have maybe a little bit of him in the flex. And, from what I'm seeing right now, the field doesn't like him in the captain spot either. He's only getting about 7% projected ownership, but Mahomes isn't much higher at 9%. I do like some Mahomes. I won't have a lot of him, but I think in some single entry, I might just have some Mahomes captains. But obviously, like in that scenario, you're expecting Mahomes to run one in. That's really the only way I think he gets there. He runs one in, he throws one to Rice, he throws one to Kelsey because if Kelsey has a couple touchdowns, it's going to be Kelsey and the captain. And, since we're on it, Christian McCaffrey, he is my favorite captain, but second place is going to be Travis Kelsey. We have seen him just really flip a switch and look like the old Kelsey in the playoffs. And San Fran, they do play a good amount of zone. And Kelsey, as we saw last week, I mean, you can't. They put their best player on him, and he still just torched him. And he's just he's a zone killer. So I'm all in on Kelsey again this week in the captain. Love him.
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. I'm going to play a pretty good amount of Kelsey. I don't think, as far as quarterbacks go, I'm going to be honest. If I'd pick one, I'd rather have a little bit more leverage and just play Purdy with the weapons that he's got. Let's say he dumps one off Deebo. and he runs it for an 80-yard touchdown. I see that better than Mahomes, and that might bite me, but I like Kelsey a lot. I think this is much more of a Debo game instead of Ayuk. Ayuk is going up against Ladarius Sneed. He has shut down everybody this year on the outside. So I don't really love that matchup for Ayuk. I'd rather play Debo. I was messing with the lineup earlier. Kelsey, Debo, Christian McCaffrey, and then you can pick like one of the cheaper wide receivers for Kansas City, and then you can get a kicker in there, and it fits just fine. Talking earlier about the non-quarterback stuff. The other running back, Isaiah Pacheco, they have not been able to run the ball very well. Obviously, he can kind of fall in the end zone, but it's not the greatest matchup in the world going up against the 49ers run defense. 49ers are much more susceptible against the pass. So just kind of going there. Rashee Rice, I might play him some in the flex, but I don't really – just not really feeling him too much. I'd rather play Kittle Kelsey. And then I think George Kittle ends up being the wild card. He's been questionable all week with a toe injury. He was limited today in practice, but I think he's, kind of the wild card on this slate. I love playing him in the captain. I think it's ultra leverage when it hits. And then I'll definitely be playing him some in the flex too.
Definitely. And to your point on Brock Purdy, if you do play Purdy at captain, I'm probably fading Christian McCaffrey in those lineups because I just don't see how he gets there. I think if Purdy's captain, I think it's Ayuk has a touchdown, Deebo Samuel has a touchdown, maybe Kittle, one of those guys have 2 touchdowns, and I just don't think Christian McCaffrey makes it into that winning lineup. So I would be underweight on Christian in those lineups. But
for Purdy and McCaffrey to work in a lineup, you have to have McCaffrey score one like a receiving touchdown. That happened late in the year, 1 week, where he had 2 receiving touchdowns to where it both worked. But I definitely get what you're saying. I think the odds of that are pretty slim.
For sure. And running optimals earlier, and this is something I really like to do, DFS Army's optimizer. I like to just run it with like a 0, like almost like no tweaks and see what it gives me, because 9 times out of 10, when it's pushing certain players, they end up doing pretty well. And I was getting the most captain was Christian McCaffrey, and second, a little surprising, Rashee Rice. I was getting him second most in the captain, about 36%. Christian McCaffrey, 39%. And looking at it, it makes sense. And I just think it's because Rashee Rice, he's getting a good amount of targets, 8, 9, 10 a game, and he's 11-4. So I think the salary savings of him in the captain spot allow you to kind of fit in more studs than if you had Christian McCaffrey in the captain, right? Who's 18,000 over on DraftKings. So I do like me some Rashee Rice. And then, my contrarian captain play, you mentioned Pacheco. I like that too, but I think I would definitely get a little bit of George Kittle in the captain as well. I think he can have a good game here, and he's even cheaper than Rashee Rice. He's only 9,600 and coming in at low owned. So I like him as a contrarian captain play. In the Super Bowl, Jameson, as you know, you've been watching football a long time. It's really condensed to the stars. It's rare that you see, specifically on teams like this with so much firepower on both sides. It's rare that you're going to see, a Richie James just go off in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, especially. And, the last couple of weeks on the Chiefs side, we've kind of gotten a feeling of how they're playing. I know Kadarius Toney is okay, but I don't think he's going to be playing much in the Super Bowl. It's really just MVS, a little bit of Justin Watson, and then Noah Gray as the other tight end over to Travis Kelce. So it stays pretty condensed there. On the 49ers side, they play Juwan Jennings a little bit. They mainly use him as a run blocker. But, he's known to catch a deep ball there. And that's really about it. I'm not going to be playing Russian roulette with a lot of these like Chiefs wide receivers past Rice and Kelce this week.
Definitely not in the captain, but flex consideration for sure. There's going to be a couple cheapos, that you need salary relief somewhere. So let's kind of start out with our top flex plays. I'll let you go first, Jameson, and then we'll just kind of make our way down the list. So let's do the more expensive guys first, and then we'll go mid range and see if there's any really cheap guys that you like.
Okay. So starting at the top, Kelsey. I'll mix Mahomes and Purdy a little bit, but I don't love either, as bad as that sounds. I'm just trying to kind of play contrarian on the Super Bowl slate, and that's kind of how I'm going to get different. Really like Deebo Samuel a lot. He's probably my favorite flex play. And then I will not be playing a whole lot of Ayuk. Might bite me, might not. But other than that, Pacheco, Rashee Rice, I'd rather play Pacheco over Rice personally. They've been really trying to make the run happen, even though it hasn't been the most successful. And then George Kittle would be the wild card for the flex. I will not play a ton of George Kittle, but I will be mixing and matching him as the captain just because I'm always been a George Kittle guy. And I do want to say one other thing. I do think both, obviously the kickers, but I think both defenses are viable. I can see a potential. I know you said you bet the over. Chiefs defense has been really good this year. 49ers defense. This is probably the worst offense they're playing in the playoffs. So we've seen them get lit up the last couple weeks, and it's kind of recency bias. But the Chiefs have been playing really low scoring games, so that's I think you can fire up both of them. I think Brock Purdy could definitely throw an interception the way he's been playing, and then kind of getting to this cheaper option. I think my favorite would be MVS. Can catch a deep ball. Elijah Mitchell hasn't really been playing. Use check. I mean, you got to get real goofy there. Little interested in Noah Gray. They've been playing a lot of 2 tight end sets. 2 receptions last week, or 5 targets, and then 3 the week before against Buffalo. So I think that's really about it for me. I'm not going to get too crazy beyond that.
Definitely. For me, obviously, the guys that we talked about at captain, they are in consideration. I'm probably going to have close to 90% Christian McCaffrey. So, between the flex and captain spot, I'm going to have a lot of him. Patrick Mahomes is a guy that I love in the flex. I don't love him in the captain, but I like him a lot more in the flex. Like last year in the Super Bowl takedown, he was the nuts in the flex. He had like 23 points. So if this game plays out the way I think it's going to be, I just struggle to see that Mahomes isn't in the flex. He's got a great rating over DFS Army's domination station. He's got the 100 rating next to Christian McCaffrey. So, and by the way, all these different tools that you have as far as rating and projection and projected ownership and fantasy points per dollar, these are all come with a VIP subscription to DFS Army. You can use code FantasyFling for 10% off a VIP subscription. I know the NFL is ending. Oh, well, we have NBA, we have NHL, we have PGA going on, we have MMA, we got UFL content coming up. I'm going to be doing a cheat sheet for that. So much content coming your way. If you play other DFS sports or you want to dip your toes into other DFS sports besides NFL, give it a try. But as I was saying, Mahomes, he has a high rating. I love Kelsey. I will have a lot of Kelsey. I think I'll just say it. I think if Kelsey's having a bad game, I think San Francisco is blowing the doors off of Kansas City. I don't see how Kansas City is in this game at all without Kelsey having a good game. That's just the way I'm going to play it. So, I think Kelsey definitely is a guy that I want to flex. Like we talked about, I like him in the captain too. I think I'll have some of Brock Purdy in the flex. I'm not expecting to have any of him really in the captain, but a little bit in the flex, but I'm not going to be over the field on him. I'll probably be under. I think it's more of a Christian McCaffrey game. Debo is another guy that I like. A little bit Ayuk, a little bit of Kittle, but I'm going to be under on Brock Purdy just because, I think you just play one quarterback in the spot, and Mahomes is going to be that guy for me. I think he has a much easier matchup. San Fran in the secondary, they give up 7 yards below average. That's on the season. Kansas City, on the other hand, they give up 40 yards below average. So it's a much tougher path for Purdy. And as good as he's been, he's definitely no Patrick Mahomes. So I think we can all agree on that.
No, I definitely agree there.
Yeah. So, some of these last guys, kind of higher price, mid-range guys, I do like Rashee Rice a lot. And like I said, I was getting some of him in the captain, running optimals. I actually got a lot of him in the flex. So the domination station, the optimizer loves him this week. And I get it. It's Kelsey and it's Rashee Rice in the passing game. And then, draw names out of a hat. Who's going to be the other guy? It's probably going to be MBS for what we've seen the last couple of weeks, but who knows? Sky Moore might be active. There's always Justin Watson who can catch a touchdown. There's Noah Gray. There's those other guys. And then I guess the last couple guys on San Fran for me, it was actually fading Debo quite a bit. And I'll say this, Jameson, I think I will set a rule, or when I'm hand building, I will be conscious of this. Debo and Christian McCaffrey do not, let's say against this defense specifically, they're not going to correlate very well, because I struggle to see where San Fran scores a boatload of points against KC's defense. And I don't think Debo and Christian McCaffrey correlate very well together. So I won't have a ton of them in the same lineup.
I think now that Debo had the injury scare, but now that he's healthy, I think he's going to have a couple of the designed runs that he hasn't really had the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can see a way that they both end up in the end zone. But if you play both of them, it gets really pricey really quick.
That's exactly it. It's 20,000 of your salary.
Yeah, that's your problem. And if it gets pretty lopsided, then you're losing, you're losing your production. So I can definitely see that.
Yeah. And then I actually do like Ayuk, just because I know the matchup is tough, but they're going to be going against a good amount of man coverage, and Ayuk, he's been a man beater. He's been really good against man this year, but that, the secondary is what it is. So we'll see. I'm not going to have crazy exposure to Ayuk, but I'll probably be over the field on him. And right now I'm seeing about 26% ownership.
So I'll be underweight, so I'll be going up against you there. So I think we've had, a couple agreements, but a couple disagreements. So
well, that's good, because there's going to be like 400,000 entries in some of these contests on DraftKings. So we got to differ somehow, some way,
Right. So, but I think unless you got something else, I think that really sums it about up. I really don't think it's going to get. I know this year the Chiefs wide receiver room has kind of been Russian roulette, but I think over the last month they've really condensed it down, mainly to MVS, Justin Watson, and obviously Rashee Rice. Those are been the main three. I really don't see Kadarius Toney getting a whole lot of action. And, Sky Moore hasn't really played much this year. I don't see him doing a whole lot either. So I think it makes it a little bit easier. But either way, I think it's going to be a good game. And I think it's going to be a close one, too.
It is. Last thing I want to kind of talk about here before we finish this up is, some of these guys that could win you the tournament. The cheap guys, there's obviously, like we had discussed, it's going to be very condensed, but you're probably still going to have one guy that's going to catch a touchdown and potentially win you the GPP. If you're talking about the 400,000 entries tournament. So McKinnon, he's a guy, he's probably not going to play, but they said there's a chance he plays. McKinnon, if McKinnon plays, I will definitely, whatever his ownership is projected as, I will be over the field on that. This is a guy that Andy Reid has schemed in the past as a receiver out of the backfield. And he's only $200. So like his path to getting there is so easy if he's has any type of involvement in the offense. If he gets a few screen passes, 20, 30 yards, he could be in the nuts at 200. So he's a guy that I would take a chance on. Kyle Juszczyk, and I kind of want to look at some player props that I'm seeing over on the Sharp app. He's over like 11 receiving yards, and we have seen him get touchdowns in the past. Carries at the goal line. So Kyle Juszczyk at his price, he's popping as one of the top fantasy points per dollar plays. An $800 salary, 2.8 projection, and Noah Gray. We kind of talked about him a little bit earlier. Every now and then, he'll get a few targets. So he's got a 21-yard projection. Juwan Jennings, I was a little surprised at this. He has a 25-yard projection in the Sharp app. And by the way, this is something that the Proptimizer is something you have access to as a DFS Army subscriber as well. But yeah. So his rushing prop or his receiving prop is 14.5. So projecting over on that. And he would kind of be that guy in San Fran's offense. If it's not Kittle, if it's not Ayuk or Debo, like Juwan Jennings could be that other guy. Specifically, if one of those guys gets banged up, he's really in an elevated role. And then we talked about MVS. Obviously, he's really come on. He's a guy that I like. And then last one for me, Justin Watson. When I was running optimals, I was getting a good amount of Justin Watson. Sure enough, on the Sharp app, they have an over 15.5 total receiving yards. And his projection is about 28 receiving yards. So these are, just some guys that could win you the tournament if they have a big play at their low salary.
Yeah, I definitely agree there, especially Juszczyk. If this is a low scoring game and he's one of the guys that fall in the end zone, he's ends up one of the guys that you end up having to be or having to have. So I definitely agree there. I think that's really about it. I bet the 49ers a couple weeks ago. I've got some 49er futures that I've just kind of rode the wave. So hoping that cash is there. And I really haven't looked too much into actual props. I usually wait to do that, so I don't have anything too fun. Maybe Christian McCaffrey first half touchdown kind of beats it then better than his anytime touchdown at minus 235. He scored a lot of first half touchdowns this year. Other than that,
that's a good one.
I was going to say I like Debo Samuel anytime touchdown. I think they might scheme him up a little bit, but other than that, I think that's about it for me. Just hoping the 49ers win here.
Yeah, and to your point, Debo has the fourth best anytime touchdown prop at plus 135. So I definitely wouldn't be looking to full fade Debo in your lineups because he could get in the end zone, and the odds say that he's the fourth most likely player to do so on this slate. So I like that.
So I think that just about does it. Are you betting in any of the wild props this year? You do like the Gatorade color and all that stuff?
I don't get into those. For the Super Bowl, I guess it's kind of fun, right? How long is the national anthem going to be? I used to know a real degenerate gambler who used to bet on like everything, like, what Lady Gaga was going to wear at the Super Bowl, like how long the national anthem was going to be, the coin toss, like you name it, all the crazy props, the Gatorade, like you were talking about. I will say probably, one of my favorite props that I am going to bet on is Elijah Mitchell. So his rushing attempt for what I was seeing right now, and it's not an actual like crazy prop. So rushing attempt, the over-under is 1.5, and total rushing yards is 4.5. So if you look at his last, I don't know, however many games, 10 games, he gets 8 attempts, 4 attempts, 7 attempts, 3 attempts, 17, 14, 4. And the last one, the one before that, I don't think he played. He only played 2% of the snaps. But yeah, that's like just a gimme at this point. He's been getting 4 attempts at minimum. So I'm definitely betting the over on that. And I'll probably do a few things. I'll bet his over on his rushing yards is 4.5. So I'll do a single bet on each of those. And then I'll probably try to parlay him as well.
There you go. Last one for me. If 49ers win, I think this goes through Christian McCaffrey. He ends up having the 3rd best Super Bowl MVP odds at plus 450. I think that's a worthwhile bet too, just because nobody, for whatever, I like Brock Purdy. It seems like everybody else doesn't, and if he wins, they just won't respect that anyways. But if Christian McCaffrey gets in the box twice, I mean, that kind of seals it up if the 49ers win. So I definitely think that's worth a sprinkle as well.
I'm rooting for him. As a Broncos fan, I watched Kyle Shanahan's dad, Mike Shanahan, for years in Denver. He was a great coach. Ed McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's dad, was a wide receiver for the Broncos. So for me, it's like it's kind of like the Broncos, the new Broncos a little bit, with the family connection over there. So I don't have the Broncos playing in the Super Bowl, so that's all I got. That's what I'm rooting for. I hope Christian McCaffrey has a great day.
There you go. So I think that wraps it up. I hope everybody wins some money. Hopefully, if your team's in it, I hope your team wins it, because I've got no dog in the fight at this point. But just hoping for a good game. That's all you can ask for. It's been a good season.
Want a good game. Want to win some money. End the season on a high note. And then, we were talking about it before it came on. Going on a cruise next week. Little vacay. Going somewhere tropical. And then I'm going to be back in mid-March, starting to break down the UFL on this channel. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Hit that notification button so you don't miss an episode when we go live. If you like this kind of content, let us know. Comment, hit that like button. It's been a great year, Jameson. I'm excited for what's coming next.
So I am too. Like I said, hope everybody enjoys the game. Have a good off season. We'll be right back here before you know it, doing NFL draft, free agency, all that good stuff. So it's full time. You just need a couple weeks to regroup, and then we'll get right back to it.
We'll be talking about it. We'll be breaking it down. Best of luck. Have a great Super Bowl, everyone. We'll see you.
See you guys.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming next. We really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next episode right here on the FantasyFling